I'm a senior economist at St George Bank, and that also covers brands Bank of Melbourne, Bank of SA. I've been there for 9 years, and before that, I was at a investment bank, Japanese investment bank called Nomura, for about 1.5 years, and then I was a research analyst before that at a company called Green Capital. I was born in Sydney, grew up in Sydney. I went to uni at the University of Technology Sydney, did my undergraduate degree there and did a bachelor's in international studies. And I also went to the University of Sydney and did a master's degree in economics.
So why did you choose to go into economics?
I think it was something that you kind of fall into. Well, for me, I fell into it. I mean, I always really enjoyed economics in university. It was probably one of the strongest subjects in all of the fields in the business degree. So, for those who have done a business degree, it's quite broad. You do cover economics and accounting and marketing and management. So, when it came down to picking what you want to specialise in, economics was me. Resonated as being most interesting, and I felt that I invested the time into it willingly.
Yeah.
When it came to getting a job, I knew that something analytical was my strength.
Yeah.
So I did a so my first role was a research analyst, and then I, just looking at job ads, one came up at Nomura as the assistant economist, and I thought that sounded very interesting and something that I would really like to do, and so applied, and then here I am. Almost 10 years later, I'm still and still enjoying it.
Yeah. So you did begin your career as a research analyst, right? So what were some of the struggles that you encountered when you landed this first job?
It was hard. Part of the difficulty, I think, is there is a lot of choice in what sort of roles you can do and what's out there. But I think the biggest challenge for me was, first of all, finding what I wanted to do and what that was part of the difficulty. And then second of all, in the job interview process, I got given some really good advice which makes me to this day, and that was that the number one reason why people do not get an interview is because they don't seem like they want the job enough. And that stuck with me, and it changed my mindset completely when I went into interviews, and particularly in that early stages. I needed to look for, because everything is so uncertain around then, you don't really know what you want. I needed to really reframe my mindset about how I would approach the interview, when the positives and what I want to get out of it. I think that really changed the result in the interview.
Yeah, and I guess the passion that you have with your job is a very important factor as well. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And what was the most memorable thing that you learned during that first year that you pursued a career in economics?
The first year, it was like I knew nothing. It's when you are working with people who have been in the industry for a very long time, very experienced, and extremely good at what they do. So me coming in there as a junior, and I try and go in and do. I remember all of my early reports; they were really difficult, to just start writing and have something interesting to say. And the feedback I'd get would be full of red ink, crosses everywhere. And so it's a really humbling experience about being told where you need to improve and not feeling like you're good at anything. And I think it's realising how much you always need to grow and learn in a job once you're in it.
Yeah, I think the part of learning how to receive negative feedback as a way of growing is a very important factor to have. Yeah. And How
yeah.
many firms did you have to apply to before you landed your first job?
I cannot remember. It was a lot. Uh, I look, I remember leaving uni. So uni would have finished up around November um, in the year, and I landed the role at Orient Capital um, in May. So it was about 5 months. Uh, I think there's a bit of soul searching in that time. It's like, oh, what am I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it's also, I mean, look, at the time I was also working at Bank of Queensland as a casual. So I think that also helps just drawing some experience,
Yeah.
you, even though it's very, very different to what I'm doing now in terms of dealing with customers and understanding the way the mechanics of a bank
Yeah.
that we land where I am now, even though it wasn't where I wanted to be, it was
Yeah.
still in the direction of where you want to go. And I think that's quite valuable in that. Wherever you go, you're going to be picking up skills for that you don't even realize.
Yeah, definitely. And what aspects do you like about being an economist, and what other aspects of the job that you do not like so much?
I like my role now in that it's quite varied. So there is that analytical aspect,
Mm-hmm.
and so thinking about what's going to happen and how and getting a handle on what's going on right now. Particularly something in this environment now with coronavirus and the
Yeah.
impact on the economy,
Yeah.
it's been a really interesting time and a bit of a sad time for a lot of people because there's a lot of challenges for many people, work and businesses which are struggling
Yeah.
under all of the restrictions. So um, kind of getting a handle on that and maybe trying to give some guidance on how things could evolve.
Yeah.
I think helpful for people. So it's a really interesting role, and it's kept me interested for a long time because the economy is always changing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some of the things what I don't like, that's a hard one. I think maybe I initially struggled with early morning starts. So we do a regular daily report in the morning, which
Yeah.
is released at 8:15, and that requires us to get up quite early,
Yeah.
start work quite early. So and there are sometimes when you're actually working quite late, so the hours, the days can be very, very long.
Yeah.
Um,
So with your current role, how would you describe a day at work, like your day-to-day tasks, including, um, yeah, waking up so early to do your report and staying up maybe a bit later in the afternoon? Yeah.
So a typical day, there is a lot of variety. So there tends to be days which are more different than others. But a typical day would include the morning report. So I wake up, I read the news and see what's happened. I read about some of the just developments in markets, so share markets, what bond yields have done, what currency markets have done, and also what economic data might have come out overnight. So a lot goes on when we go to sleep overseas. That's when all the things happen in the US and Europe, and then when we wake up, we get all of that information. And then during the day, it could be anything to covering reports on Australian data, which gets released on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a presentation that I'll be giving. Some of the days involve preparing for the presentation, putting some slides together, and another interesting part of the role is some of them is the meetings that we might have among other economists.
Yeah.
And that's where we have our discussion about what's the outlook going to look like? What are the things we're looking out for? Some of those discussions can actually get very long-winded and off track. So,
Yeah.
but that's also another quite interesting part of the role too.
Yeah, and I guess, as you said, the market fluctuates all the time and everything can happen overnight. Would you think a core skill for graduates to have like a bit of strength in the interviews of landing their job would be to be updated on trends and news?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's imperative because that's what you're going to be looking at all the time. You need to show that you're interested in developments in the world. I mean, particularly if you're looking at a role in as an analyst in economics.
Yeah.
I think more broadly for in preparing for a role, it's about sort of assessing what you'll be doing in that role and addressing those skills
Yeah.
that are required in that role.
Yeah. So there's a question that our member has asked. How much of your role is reactive or planned tactical versus strategic? How has that changed from a graduate to now?
Um, sorry, the question was, how has my role changed?
Yeah, from being a graduate to your position now. So how much of the role is reactive or planned tactical or strategic?
Right.
Yeah.
I, I think I'm assuming the question relates to my career trajectory.
Yeah.
So in terms of how I planned my career, where I wanted to go,
Yeah.
I think when you start out, it's quite simple in terms of where you want to be because you're just learning. So when I became an economist, it was about improving all of those skills which come with it. So it meant improving all my writing skills, keeping updated with the economy, keeping up the analysis of reading, and just I guess keeping up. I guess it's the continuous thinking about what's going to happen.
Yeah.
In terms of the career, I mean, I did have in mind. I wanted to keep improving as an economist.
Yeah.
I don't think I had in the back of my mind, oh look, I want to be a senior economist. That's where I want to be. It wasn't like that for me. It was like, look, I really like what I'm doing. I want to just keep growing and getting better. I want to be good. I want to be a good economist. And so and I guess just over the years, that sort of progression becomes natural.
Yeah.
Now that I'm in a senior position, a senior economist position, I guess it's I need to start asking myself, well, what's next? And that's kind of what I'm exploring now. I think I don't think that really changes in terms of what is going to be next. I think in terms of my personal journey and my path, it's a lot more. I see a lot of possibilities from here. Whereas I think for a long part of my career, I just wanted to just have a better economy.
Yeah. And is this the career that you would recommend for students?
I think you have to love economics to be an economist. So, in terms of a recommendation of a career path, you gotta love what you do, and you have to know yourself. And I think if you keep developing and growing in what you want to build on.
Yeah.
On your strengths, you know, you are the one who knows your strengths and your weaknesses, what you like, what you don't like.
Yeah.
So as long as you become aware of those, you want to grow and develop and learn, I'm sure that you'll be a success in whatever you do.
Yeah. And for students who do know that they are undertaking a course in economics and they are planning to be graduates pursuing the career in economics, besides being updated on the trends and news, what do you think are other skills and strengths that would be important for those graduates?
Well, economics as a field of study is very diverse and broad. So I myself am working in a bank, so that requires me to be very updated on the news, the developments in financial markets, and I also need that diverse range of skills of not just being very analytical and being able to write, it's very important that I'm able to communicate that very effectively to my clients.
Yeah.
I think maybe more broadly as an economist, as along with those analytical skills, you're going to need some very good communication skills because you also need to communicate how what you're analysing is projected to your audience. But you could, in terms of being an economist, you don't have to be looking at the world events. It could be quite a lot more granular in terms of your focus and maybe. And I think a lot of the mathematical models which you can apply actually have a better fit and work a lot better when it comes to that kind of study. So that's the more microeconomics area, or if you're looking at particular industries. So that, yeah, as I said, like it's extremely broad ranging what an economist can do. So it doesn't have to be a bank. It could be for other companies in food industry, Google as well. It could be some consumer services too. I think where they're hiring economists is also changing over time. So it's going to be different for.
Yeah, and is there like a particular area within economics that graduates should be focusing on so that it gives them like an edge or to be more relevant going into the workforce? And I know that you mentioned that it changes all the time, but is there a particular area that you think would be beneficial?
I think if you've already got in mind that you want to be an economist, you've already established your strength in analysing data, and you really like sort of working things out and how things work. So you've got that real logical mindset. So I guess my advice is think about the sort of interpersonal skills, which are also very important.
Yeah.
And they're the soft skills, which will probably get you that bit further in your career. Because while it's very valuable to understand and analyse information, it's those softer skills which are, I think, they're a bit harder to just sort of pick up.
Yeah.
Or in effect being replaced by computer,
Yeah. So yeah, with the soft skills as well, and the hard skills, which are like applications like Stata or different coding languages like Python and R, would you think that those hard skills are also crucial for graduates as well?
Oh yeah. They're still quite important, and they're valuable in, I guess, the way we're analysing information now. I think it's important that you know how to interpret it. I think what I'm saying is, yes, you can learn all of those, but to actually be able to interpret and communicate what you're finding and presenting it and thinking about it in a really logical way, and that's the more important thing.
Yeah, and I guess it's the conjunction of being able to communicate your findings, but also the beneficial of having those different coding advantages and applications.
I think what I'm trying to say is that if you come to an interview and your strength is that you know those programming languages, well, that's great, but you can always learn those things. You can always learn a program. You can always learn about. There are things which you can just pick up, but I think employers want to see some of those things which you don't really just pick up. You learn. They can be. I mean, it's not necessarily innate ability either, but it's those skills which I think are just a bit more nuanced and not just something that you can just.
Yeah. And for those who just graduated in their degree in economics, would you think that it's important for them to go and do their masters as well, knowing that you've done your masters in economics?
I did a masters because I didn't feel like my undergrad had enough economics that would be recognised in the industry. So that's why I did the Masters in Economics. I think it might be different. I don't know what it would be like for other people, but I think by the time I did my Masters, I had already, I'd actually left Nomura, so I'd already been working nearly 2 years as an economist already, and working for a total of about two and a half years in total. So I think it was helpful for me in that I went to work first, because I think getting out of your undergraduate degree, I had some idea of what I liked and what I didn't like and what I wanted to do, but you don't really know until you're in there and you're exploring the different roles out there. So it makes sense to get some experience so you know what direction you want to be headed into. And the masters in a way is supposed to be complementary to that.
Yeah, and I guess having that experience also gave you a clearer idea of what you were passionate about as well, right?
Yes, exactly. And because I was working as an economist, and that's why I went back to do a Masters in Economics.
Yeah. And what were the economics aspects in an undergraduate degree that lacked that the master's degree provided you?
I actually think the undergraduate gave me a lot of good. It made me realise how good the undergraduate degree was, because I did major in economics and I had some fantastic lecturers at UTF and really thought-provoking subjects. I found them really relevant for the time that we were discussing them. So we were talking about. I think one of the projects which stood out in my mind was Japan in the 90s and how it had went through, and we were talking about liquidity traps, and so in Japan that was sort of described as their lost decade, which is extended, I think, many more decades now. But because I think it was that real life application that I think brought it and made it very, very interesting. The master's degree, I think, provided a lot more technical for me. So that's where my maths ability increased, and also I think understanding some of the growth models and the statistical software, and that was where I gained all of that sort of knowledge and experience from the degree.
Yeah, and in order to kind of pursue that career, would you think that it's important for graduates to try to get into an internship or a graduate program before they go out there into the workforce?
Those programs are really, really good. They're designed for people just out of uni, so they give them a lot of that development and also learn about the different parts of that organisation. So, for example, at the bank, at the group, the graduate, there are a whole range of graduate programs and internships. And I think they're very valuable for people just given a kind of, I guess, understanding and stepping stone to a career in whatever they decide to do. At the same time, it isn't the only option. They're very, very competitive. So those of you out there who have gotten into a grad program, congratulations. They do pick very bright people, very well-rounded people. They're all very lovely as well. But it isn't the only part. I didn't go into a grad program, and there are roles out there and companies who need people at an entry-level position. And I think don't underestimate the sort of experience that you will get from those kind of roles. So every kind of role that you do is going to shape you in some way.
And if you have worked with a graduate before, and if you were to work with a graduate, what would you expect from them? What would be the skills that you would expect from someone who has no experience in this career?
I think first and foremost, there has to be that willingness to learn. They need to be really open what about taking on certain information and tasks, and a really big one. They need to be able to ask questions. I I think I struggled a little sometimes asking questions, but after getting a bit comfortable, I started asking questions a lot. But ultimately, you have to know you don't know. You're not expected to know much.
Yeah.
So they need to be comfortable knowing um, that they don't know. And yes, look, it's great to have that initiative to try.
Yeah.
And I think that comes with the proactiveness. So that's also a great quality to have.
Yeah.
But that also I think all ties back down to that willingness to learn and grow.
Yeah.
All of those qualities.
Yeah. And if you could give one advice to those who want to follow your footsteps, what would it be?
First of all, I would say these are my footsteps. May not actually work for you. So, look, you just got to follow. You know yourself better than anyone else, and you know what you like, what you don't like, and you'll work it out. You'll find your way, and I think we've all got a path to take, and I think I said before, if you are just if you do know yourself and you're willing to also grow and develop, what 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 are your weaknesses and recognize them,
Yeah.
then I'm sure you'll be successful.
Yeah. And I think what you said resonated with me a lot because it's the ability for you to be eager to learn as well as you will find your way, and as long as you have that passion for what you want to do, you'll be all okay in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think importantly, look, when you're starting out in your career, it's such an uncertain time, and you're going to have, and I think there's a lot of insecurities about yourself as well,
Yeah.
and completely understandable. Like you're going out there in this big wide world, and everyone out there knows more than you. But that's something to embrace as well, because there's lots and lots of opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you, Janu, for your time today, and we really appreciate you sharing your experiences with us. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in, and remember to join our group for even more content on your desired field. Thank you.